Martin is the director of the Department of Migration at the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior and a professor of ornithology at the University of Konstanz. His work focuses on global migratory patterns in animals, with particular emphasis on conservation, detection of disasters, disease spread, and global change. We've invited Martin here as our first speaker today to share his expertise as a leading researcher in the field of animal movement, and also as the lead of the Icarus initiative, which we've had a lot of questions about over the last few sessions. But for those who don't know, the Icarus initiative is working to install the Internet of Animals using a small object tracking system on the International Space Station. So it's really pushing the field forward in terms of tracking animal movement and using technology to do so. So Martin, do you want to take it away? I'm just checking you have unmuted yourself.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation. Great to see you all. And it's really exciting to see Christian's introduction, because I think we'll all give certain aspects of that in our talks. I think what's really exciting about the future is that we can now link together all these informations from intelligent sensors around the world, and that is animals in the Internet of Animals. And that's something that I think all of us are creating together. This is something that is obviously a bottom-up effort in the entire community. Now, I've tried to come up with a few provocative suggestions today, and I hope you bear with me. So the first one is, I think there's only one ecology. And this is something that I often get from people outside our field, that they say, well, why do you have all these different ecologies? What is that all about? Well, I think it's the history of our discipline. I think we started small and now we're going large and global. And I think that's super important, that we continue to study many populations over a long time. And remote sensing people tell us, 3 decades is the minimum. We need global databases for that. We have to include the environment. It's interdisciplinary. And we have to engage citizen scientists, because we want to democratize analyses, and what Christian already said about the applications that we have. Now, the second part, I think, where we need more is to show that what we are doing is really telling us the truth. And we have to show that by doing predictions. If our predictions are wrong, then probably our results are wrong. And other disciplines actually do that. Engineering does it for biomimicry. They do robotics as proof. And if the robots work, then the principle was okay. And agriculture does it all the time. So I think we have to do that as well. And I think that's something that also, Christian has alluded to in his brainchild, the anthropause work of the International Biologging Society. I think we can use these global experiments now. This is a super exciting way for all of us to combine our efforts and get into these big ecology questions. And I think we can have basic and applied aspects together. This is done by our colleagues in Kruger Park for wild dogs, where they study their movements and then know when they are snared and help them. Or, as Christian also already said, how animals protect animals. When we log the information on animals, they tell us something is happening in the environment, like a poacher is coming, then we can know that. Or disease predictions, again, something in real time where we can make a difference. Now, what's also super important, I think, is that we do lifetime observations, because we need to know the Tinbergen principles to really understand what's going on. Otherwise, we can't quite interpret everything. And that does mean we need to know how individuals learn their skills, the ontogeny, what traits help them to survive, the proximate part, and how an individual dies. And that means lifetime tracking and tracking all the traumas that they have during life. Now, that does mean we need better technology. In other disciplines, like in radio astronomy, astrophysics, there is a Smithsonian Harvard National Lab where they develop these instruments. I think we need something on that scale, because we also need better quality of instruments, smaller and better and longer lasting. We have to include citizen scientists, and I think Tanya is the champion on that. And we need better databases and standards for interoperability and openness. Now, I want to go through a few of those examples just via the MoveBank ecosystem, because some of that is sort of highlighted in this scheme. It's not all done by that team, but it's highlighted there. So I think for communication, obviously, there's never one size that fits all. So there will always be different systems that people have to adjust to. And they always obey to the same kind of law that you can't beat physics. You know, you need energy. You can't get that by other means than just batteries or capacitors or harvesting. But then we can count on Moore's law that things get much smaller and better in very short amounts of time. And that has happened over the last 1 or 2 decades already. Now, what I see as a massive future trend is that the Internet of Things communication, so that is terrestrially Sigfox and LoRa and others, narrowband IoT, but in space, that was the Icarus waveform that we established. And they actually are now, we are on the verge of combining those into one system where you don't have to worry whether you want to communicate terrestrially or via space in the future. So that is something that I think is very important. You can't communicate a lot of information, but then I come to that in the tags next. And that's super important because we will have AI on chip that's already being implemented right now, real true AI on chip, and open source and cheaper tags, modular tags that can be mass produced. So I think this is a super important trend. And as Christian said, and I fully support that, I think we need wearables for wildlife. So don't ever use the smallest tags on the smallest animals to just barely make it. I fully agree on that. Sometimes that's super important if you need to do something for conservation. But in general, I think it shouldn't happen. It should really be wearables. Now, our team has recently established one open source Wi-Fi enabled solution for biologging. I think that's a very nice trend because it's super cheap. Everybody can produce it. Everybody can use it. There's an application layer. There's an algorithmic layer where you can do machine learning and AI on board. There's a sensor layer, and you can clip on different sensors, audio or environmental sensing or chemical sensing, whatever you want, and a hardware platform. And it's a cheap system. Now, this is where this is being implemented on ear tags in rhinos, for example. So really as a wearable, interestingly, these tags have to be below 20 grams to really be nice and fit in the ear. So they have to be small, which is good and achievable. Or in other animals around these animals to protect them because they tell us when things happen in the environment, like poachers are coming through. Now, I think the really big trend that we have seen over the last years, and that's super important, I think, for the entire discipline, is that we have combined our forces. And this started with analyses like Marley Tucker's and Thomas Muller's data on human alteration of landscape that shorten animal movement. So this No Room to Roam paper that many of you and us are a part of. It's Christian's landmark study on anthropause effects on animals, and the idea to really do that as a global experiment in the future. It's Sarah Davidson's Arctic Animal Movement Archive with hundreds of people that are contributing. So very exciting developments that are really seen by other fields, by the big physics disciplines and chemical disciplines and everybody. And it is applied like what the Audubon Migratory Bird Initiative has done with many other partners to really use these data for conservation. Now, I think we need to be more proactive in including environmental data, the environment in all of those analyses. This is now possible because we do have major Earth observation instruments for the last, well, say 20 to 40 years, depending on what you see there. Landsat for a long time, since 1982. So I think this is something that needs to be standard part of all the analysis, because the animals need the environmental context. And I think it's also really important that we go the route of democratizing the analysis. We have done that through Move apps in the MoveBank system, where you can click together your analyses and really then study the things that you are interested in. For example, we are losing about 30% of our songbirds, both in America and Europe. Conservation managers on the ground need to study, need to analyze in real time, all the time, what's happening there. And this is done by public workflows that can be shared. This can simply be clicked together, so you don't have to be coding in MATLAB or R or Python. So I think those kind of things are really helping to make our analysis and our reach of the data much better. And there are new communication systems. We are now working on the next generation Icarus system. This is GraceEye, Gravity, and Icarus combined. It's a dual satellite pair that is currently in the phase A. That will actually enable us to do tags of much smaller sizes, so way below 1 gram, to communicate on a global scale. And that will then help us to really understand the decline of birds on that scale. So thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Martin. You kind of answered my first question, which was going to be, what are you focusing on next? But I guess you can take the second part of that, which is, what makes you feel most optimistic for the future?
Well, I think it's, I mean, the community of people that is coming together here in these forums and globally. I think that this is not an isolated movement anymore, but it's really a major discipline that's maturing rapidly. Technology is developing super rapidly in the IoT field is amazing, and soon we'll have the same situation as in cell phone technology 25 years ago, where initially every continent had their own system, and now you can take your phone anywhere, and that's the same in IoT in the future. So I think the data gathering will not be the problem anymore. It's going to be the analysis and the global linking of data sets. And I think that's a shift in our focus, but I think it's super exciting.
Okay, there's been a lot of chat about drop-offs and specific innovations, but I don't think they're necessarily things I'm going to put to you. So I'm going to pause for a second and bring you back with our full discussion in about half an hour. So thank you so much, Martin.